Welcome to the Old Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Feels like we've been away a while, Dan, but we haven't.
What's with the Dan and the formalities and the response to the
Well,
intro?
what
Do
am
you
I
notice you
supposed to
do that?
call
It's
you?
like, well,
What am
hey,
I
how are
supposed
you?
to call you?
How are
Your
you
name's
today, sir?
Dan.
Just you call me dude, dick, like you call me all
I
kinds of
call
things.
you every once in a while. A
What
dude
you usually
flies
don't
out.
call me by is my name.
That's if
So
we're off air, but on air, what am I supposed to call?
I don't
Hey,
know. It's just
Stanley.
it's this very
Hey,
formal.
Stan.
It's a very formal thing. It's
Well,
like,
it's good to see you.
how are you today, Dan? Like it's
Yeah,
a good
like
thing we're talking about a movie today that involves AI because sometimes I wonder if I'm doing a show with a robot.
I'm kind of deadpan sometimes. I
Or
know. It's just
as you would say, robot with
like
that accent.
you sound like a you're really more the robot. You sound,
Yeah.
hey, it's
Now,
Dan Smith. Welcome to Old Brother. Come on. And then it comes to me, and I'm like, hey, it's
who
me.
the
It's normal
who the
Mike.
hell was that? Okay, so
Uh,
July 2022.
we are
Right?
just
It's
when you
July
thought
22nd, 2023, when you're getting this episode of the Yo Brother podcast. We're doing now. We haven't done many of these where we've done a first look. I'm getting back to you. Where we did a first look on the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and
way
we're
back.
back to do a review on the film.
Correct.
We've only
And
done that a few times so far, but yeah, but we were out there opening weekend to see this film.
yeah, which I always have such a good time with my chums. I'm
Yeah.
sitting
I
there,
look
right?
back I really look forward to getting back, engaging with my community and, in addition to my volunteer work, I
I
like to
got
head out
like
to
a
the
family
cinema.
in front of me, right?
Yeah, there's nothing I like more than a community experience.
And you know, this thing about picking
Uh,
your seat before you get there, I hate. Now,
oh, see, I love that.
some people like it, right? I hate it because if I'm stuck behind some jerk, I can't move.
Uh,
I'll like move
okay.
to a seat. I'll move
That's
around
a
3
that's a
times.
very interesting and neurotic take on it. I
Yeah,
like
so
that.
I had
That's
this
a fair point,
family.
though. That's a
I
fair
had this
point.
family in front of me, right? They it's too expensive, I know, at the counter, but you shouldn't be allowed to bring in, like, a whole bag of stuff from Ralph's or,
You say
Star
that. I'm
Market.
calling bullshit on this. Like, I haven't seen that since like 1987, where someone comes in
Dude,
with a trash bag and you hear the click, of the
I
can
get
going.
that I think it's maybe where we live,
I
but
think it's the region. Yeah.
so they're opening all sorts of, ho-hos and
Ding
Pop-Tarts.
dongs.
So I finally give it the, like, that's when you
That's the Larry David, is
yeah,
what it
that's
is.
when you're afraid to say, "Hey, will you shut the hell up?"
Right.
So the lady turns around, and I thought,
Mhm.
"Oh, man, I'm gonna get a
You're
face
in
full."
for it.
And she's like,
Yeah.
"Would you like a Hostess
See,
cupcake?"
this is our problem. This is what you and I have a lifelong struggle with, right? It's
But
you
it's
more than
torture.
me.
Yeah, it's torture for me.
Yeah.
And I had headphones on,
Wow.
it was just unbelievable, but
Yeah.
I didn't take the Hostess cupcake, but I heard it the whole movie. I heard,
Yeah.
crinkling and crackling
My
and
experience was quite pleasant. I went with a
was it?
friend. Yeah, I went with a
But
friend of
you go
mine.
to a place that they actually serve dinner.
That's right.
That's crazy. I'm
How
never
do
going there
how do you not have that by now? You're
because
s
we're normal.
you're so behind the times. No, you're behind the times. I'm getting, appetizers and, craft beers and
I went to a
full
place
menu.
like that in Detroit once, and it was supposed to be like a booth. You were in a
Mhm.
booth,
That was
and
a
it was
different kind of theater, I think, that you went to.
Yeah, that's where you
Did
go in
you
Florida.
did you bring quarters to that
Yeah,
theater?
yeah, and then the
Yeah.
So let's
Now
get to Mission Impossible.
yeah, so was it okay, so
Well,
this came out.
first of all, before we get to Mission Impossible, let me
Yeah.
just say, just when you thought the movies were gone, we bring them back in. And I'm talking about Barbenheimer. which is a
Barbenheimer, which is
phenomenon.
by the time you get this episode of the Oh Brother podcast,
That'll be
that's come and gone. Yeah.
and it's done Barbie did 70,000,000 day one.
Mhm. And
Count that also counted Thursday
and
night, but
and Oppenheimer did
30,000,000 day one. It's on track to be the highest grossing R-rated movie ever, while Barbie's gonna make 150,000,000 this weekend,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Oppenheimer is set to make 77,000,000,
It's gonna
which
be
compared to what we've seen.
yeah, it's gonna be a slow burn, I think, pardon the pun, but, yeah, and we're gonna get into that a little bit as we talk about Mission Impossible too, and I think you've got a lot to say about that, but this
Yeah,
came out Dead Reckoning Part 1 came out July 11th,
right.
right after the major holiday, here in the States, and, this is, interesting. This clocks in at what, 2 hours, 43 minutes.
It was long.
Not the longest of the franchise, certainly.
No.
I know one of them clocks in at over 3 hours. It's directed by Christopher McQuarrie or Christopher, McHugh, I think they refer to him as, who also did Fallout, the last
Right, and
film in
he's doing
2018.
Dead Reckoning too.
Right. Well, they filmed it back to back. I mean, that one's
Yeah,
in the can, I think, too.
and the budget on this right now is 296,000,000,
Right.
and some of
One of
that was stop and starts
Right.
because of COVID.
COVID. Yeah, this is the famous shutdown where can you see I'm trying to get the sun out of my face? I've got to kind of come over here. It's like sundown, you better take care. It's Gordon Lightfoot's hour. But it
To our
it
Canadian friends.
yeah, exactly. What was I just lost my train of
You
thought
were
there.
talking
Sorry.
about, why it was 296,000,000. I said it was gonna be come in at
Oh, the budget. Well, no,
296,000,000.
I was just saying this is the famous shutdown
Right.
where
Tom
they
Cruise.
started filming February 2020.
Right.
And then something happened right after that, of course, the COVID pandemic came into full swing. Anyways, and you remember the audio that got
Yeah.
released of Cruise going off on a couple of production people, rightly so, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of many others, actually. I think
I was in
most
total agreement.
I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone.
most people came to his defense over that because
Yeah.
they were violating the protocols that were in
Right.
place at that time, and this was, again, to Cruz's point, we just mentioned this in our previous first look. Ironically, I think the one we did on Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the
Yes.
Scorsese film coming, is his, the understanding that like this was in a so important, right? For not only just the fact of people that are working and relying on this
Mhm.
production, hundreds and hundreds of people employed by this production, but this what would become this kind of significance of trying to get people back into the cinema because as right out of his mouth, right? That's why he makes films, as
Right.
do many other filmmakers, right? It's that cinema experience that
And
you talk so lovingly about at the start of the episode.
yeah, and well, in this case, it's it's a little odd because the writers and now actors are on strike.
That's right.
And when
First
this
time together in what, 60 years?
yeah, and when by the time this airs, um, it's probably still gonna be going on
Mm,
'cause, they're both kinda digging in.
right.
I mean, you're just gonna get people back in, and then you're gonna I mean, the movie theaters gotta be going nuts.
Yeah, the
Gotta be
timing
going
of this
nuts.
couldn't be worse, and we could do a whole episode on that, so I don't wanna get on a rabbit
Yeah,
hole
let's
with the
get into
strike,
Mission
but so
Impossible.
go ahead. I said, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, he did Fallout, the last one. Now, this is you're laugh at this, but I'm usually a one and done, even when it comes to unless it's Halloween.
Right,
Right? I'm in and
right,
out in terms of my retention of it or what the
right.
storyline was. I don't remember what the hell happened, and I had no idea that, was it Matt Damon or somebody in the first film? I went back and was looking at clips from the first film, and it was like all these people that I had no idea were in that first film. Anyways,
John
but
Voight was a big
John Voight
player.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
was in it, of course. But what I wanted to mention was I had before I went out to see Dead Reckoning, I said, let me
Mhm.
go back and watch the last one just to kind of get,
Which was
get it,
Fallout.
yeah, which was Fallout, to get it fresh in my head, which was, of course, uh, starred Henry Cavill, our
Yeah.
favorite Superman.
And they had that
Well, not of
fight
all
in the
time.
bathroom. That was
Yeah, where
great.
Cavill kind of does this with the arms,
Yeah.
like he's getting ready. Oh man, it's so I love that guy. But anyways, what I didn't realize until today,
Mhm.
before we get on air, is that I was actually watching Rogue Nation. I had no
Well,
idea. So I was
Rogue
way off.
Rogue Nation, Ghost Protocol, and
Yeah.
the Fallout, all kinda like, I can't figure the 3 of them
No,
out.
I
It's
and the guy Lane, I think, was that the character Lane, the guy who ends up like in a straitjacket in that scene in Fallout where they plunge it into the water. Remember the
right.
guy? Like the water, it gets submerged. Anyways,
Yeah.
so I that just goes to show you, like I can't follow the storyline whatsoever. But I was very confused going to
Well
see Dead Reckoning. Like, oh wait a minute,
well,
Ilsa
they did
Faust, and I was an episode, I was a whole film behind.
there was some superfluous casting in
Oh
this, though,
god.
wasn't there? Like,
Well,
do
tell
we
me about
need like,
Esai
Paramount's
Morales.
he was
Esai Morales.
fine. He
Yeah,
was fine, but he
but there's a
played
there's a whole flashback that they filmed in for this, but that didn't really. He was never in Mission
no,
Impossible.
because no, he wasn't.
Okay,
That
but they
that was a
filmed a
fake.
scene that sort
Yes,
of
showing him in
went
it.
back to Ethan Hunt's past.
Right, that's like the guy who plays Kittredge. He
Yeah,
was only in the first one, correct? Well,
Henry.
I'm asking the wrong guy.
No, no, no. I do my homework.
And
Henry Tierney. Now I thought he had been in it, recently. He hasn't been in it, as you said,
no.
since the first film,
Yeah,
which came out in
and
1996.
I forget what happened to him in the first movie.
Uh,
All I remember
no idea.
is it ended with him with the stick of gum, red light, green light. You don't remember that? And
No
he
idea.
sticks them together. It makes a bomb and he sticks it on the helicopter, which
Ah,
blows him out of a
okay.
train tunnel, which of course
Yeah.
would happen. I mean, that could
It's
happen.
quite believable, yeah. Um, Now you said, okay, so let's talk, numbers here for a second. So you said a budget about 296,
296.
somewhere in there. One of the most expensive,
Yes. It's
films ever
the
made.
most expensive mission made
Yeah, absolutely.
by
Oh,
far.
now here's where it gets interesting. It opened at about 55 million, somewhere around there,
Yeah.
right, in the
Yeah.
US, and it's made what? Gross, I think about
104.
no,
Oh,
gross
gross.
worldwide about
Gross
268.
273. Yeah.
Oh, you've
It's
got
it's
more
up a
current
little. Yeah.
numbers, yeah. So, but if you go back and look at, I think even did I write it down? If you go back and look at some of the previous installments,
Mhm.
they didn't get off to like this fantastic opening
No.
weekend start either. They again, a
They have
slow burn.
legs. Right.
So will this have legs is the question.
And I predicted when Elemental came out and Flash in the same weekend,
Mhm,
we did first looks on both of them.
mhm.
And I predicted in that episode that Elemental, because they said, "Oh, 2 bombs came out, Flash and Elemental." I said, "You watch, Elemental's gonna make money. It's
Right.
gonna keep going." It came in 5th this week. It's
Mhm.
135,000,000 just domestically,
Yeah.
and, Flash is 105,000,000. Horrible.
Yeah.
He did that at the beginning,
Did he do it at
and
the
I
beginning?
was
Yeah.
gonna you haven't seen it yet. I
Bef
wanna talk
No, I'm
spoilers
gonna
with
see
you.
it. So, okay, so let me run down some of the cast here, and then let's throw it back to you. So Haley Atwell appears in this as
Mhm,
she plays a character called Grace. Ving Rhames, of course, is back as Luther. Simon Pegg, Benji, Rebecca Ferguson, one of your favorites, of course,
mhm.
plays Ilsa Faust. Vanessa Kirby is back as the White Widow. Esai Morales, who looks great, by the way.
Wait,
Um,
the White Widow was in
she
another
was in Fallout.
okay.
She was in Fallout, yeah. She
I
was
know.
she was, she's an arms dealer, basically, so she's got her hands in that world. Remember, that was all about those plutonium.
So, she was a bad guy, and then at
Yeah,
the end, the last second, she's like a good guy.
a fa in the last one, you mean?
No, I'm
Oh,
talking
this
this
one too.
one, Dead Reckoning.
It was kinda the same thing for Fallout, it was a
Yeah,
similar turn because she ends up
right.
they're, like, in cahoots with, MI or whatever.
And he's
The
always
IMF,
had this
sorry.
the IMF, yeah,
Yeah.
not to be confused with
The
FBI
Yeah,
or
the very
anything.
aptly titled Impossible Mission Force.
Why did
It
they
sounds
have
like such
I
a
know
gag.
they're copying the TV show, but that's stupid.
It's very silly. Let me finish running down this list here. Esai Morales plays a very, central character named
Mhm.
Gabriel. We got to get into talking about artificial intelligence in this. Henry Tierney, who you mentioned, is Kittredge. Shea Wiggum, always like to see Shea
And
Wiggum.
he was good.
He was great. Yeah, he played Briggs. He's
He's in the new Perry Mason as
oh,
a
that's right.
new
That's right.
character.
And he was
Yeah,
also famously in Boardwalk Empire.
right.
I can't say Wiggum, of course, without thinking of The
Yeah.
Simpsons, and you must
Hey,
think,
wake up.
"Hey, Wiggum."
What's going?
Terrible, terrible.
That was
Uh,
terrible, wake 'em.
his partner, Shea
Yeah,
Wiggum's partner, was played by Greg Tarzan Davis. How about that for a name?
yeah.
Who was really good. I liked him in this. He was a good
It was a
companion to
small
have.
part, but yeah.
No, he was running around with Wiggum everywhere.
Yeah, but
He was with him the whole time.
if there was any dialogue, it was Shay that did it.
Oh, yeah, 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 and then, of course, we go way back to Princess Bride days with Carrie Yules, who,
Yeah,
shows up in this as the, national
significant part.
intelligence director or whatever, right? Denlinger. Charles Parnell, who I wanna mention, I don't he played a character called NRO. I don't remember what that was for, but this guy is, showing up in everything. He was in Top Gun: Maverick, so he worked with Tom Cruise in
Mhm.
Maverick. He was in, Mandalorian season 3, I believe. And he was in an episode of at least one episode of Barry, which of course we love in the podcast. So this
Yeah,
guy's been all over the place. Now, the one person I haven't mentioned yet, Palm Clementif, who people would know as Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy.
right.
This is going to be
She
one of
looks
my
so different.
this is going to be one of my first complaints about this film is we needed more Palm. Like
More
her
what?
character, more Palm, more of her character in this
Oh,
film. She was awesome, but I just felt like she wasn't in it enough. It's a very significant role in the film as it turns out, but
mhm.
I just didn't think she was featured enough. I really liked her. Her character is named Paris in the
Did
film.
she have the dark hair
In
in this one? In
No,
the
it was blonde.
okay, okay, there
It
were 2
she
blondes.
was, doing all the martial arts and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it was good to see that Paramount's not bending to the will of Hollywood by racially, I mean, everyone was either blonde, blue-eyed, or brown
Yeah,
hair, blue-eyed.
yeah.
It should have been Impossible or Dead Reckoning with hot people in it.
Yeah, no, she was great. I mean, and there was some action sequences where, like, there's a sequence where very sort of close quarter battle with Cruz. That
Yeah.
was just great, So, anyways, let me kick it back to you because you had like a whole chunk you want to get into with this,
Well,
which is it the money thing?
no, well, I've got all the money from every film
As
listed.
yeah, as do I. Yeah.
How they did the last one that opened rough was Mission Impossible 3, one of my favorites
Mhm.
because it had, um, who's the actor? Oh god.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the late great, right?
Yes, yes.
He was the villain in the film.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it.
Well, yeah,
It's
we'll
one of
get
the
it.
3 it's one of the 3 names. Right now, people are going
Philip
berserk.
Seymour Hoffman.
Thank you. You
Good lord.
salvaged it. You salvaged
Yeah.
it because you wanna talk about we were gonna get some more idiotic comments, on YouTube. Not from idiots, but calling us idiots.
Right,
So,
right.
um
Usually we live up to it, but
yeah, the guy on the right. So, it's interesting you mentioned MI3 because that was directed by J.J. Abrams,
mhm.
and I don't know if all the films, but most of them up until this Dead Reckoning Part 1
Mhm.
were, Bad Robot, his production company, was involved. This is the first one where he's not involved in any stretch, any way, shape, or form. So
Hmm.
I don't
Do you
know.
know why?
No, I was going to ask if you'd.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
didn't
why.
see any sort of
I know
gossip or
Tom
rumors.
Cruise is a tough guy to work with.
You
Part
said Mission
3
Impossible 3, yeah.
opened at, 134,
Mm.
ended at 398, which are good numbers, but that was when he was jumping on sofas and pledging his love for Katie Holmes, and that turned people off. Like,
Wow.
that was
I like how
supposed
you
to
just
open.
you threw this Oprah reference out that
Well, that's gonna
half
come up.
most people may not even know what we're talking about, but of course the infamous when he was on Oprah and
Yeah.
he was jumping up and down on the couch professing his love.
We've never seen you behave this way before.
I know.
Have you ever felt this way before?
The only thing significant I have to say is no matter how good this does in the box office, it's not gonna make a profit. The numbers are so down. Even if it does, the best Mission Impossible movie was Fallout. Did
Mhm. 1
798
million.
million, oh, it's
Yeah.
91,000,000.
Mhm.
Even if this does 791,000,000, it's a loser. That's
Mm.
how bad the production costs were, and I don't think, Dan, this is gonna, there I go with your name again. I don't think this is gonna cross 500,000,000,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that would be considered a not a flop, certainly, but,
no,
it
but
it would not meet expectations,
no, and it will
certainly.
not make profits. It's not,
Right.
it was disappointing to me. It started out, I love the beginning of Mission Impossible movies where
Mhm.
they do this recording will just self-destruct and
Which they did.
they did it, but they did it like 10 minutes in.
Right, and they almost did it,
They did it
it
like a throwaway. It was a tape recorder and he just threw it in the barrel.
well, it was very similar to the beginning of the one in Fallout. If you go back and watch that, it was very
Yeah, I'll have
similar.
to watch that.
They
But
were probably
remember the
trying to.
one, it was MI2, which for me is the worst
Mhm.
MI of all of them, and
That
he
was
had the
John Woo.
glasses.
John Woo directed that one.
I know, and I didn't like it.
Mm.
And remember he had the glasses? Anthony Hopkins was the voice.
Mhm.
This recording was, and then he just kinda throws the glasses and they puff into smoke.
Yeah.
It was usually that creative. This one, no.
Yeah. It's
And
it's
and for the
it's
love of God, stop doing the Scooby Doo. I've been saying that since 2.
but that's yeah, they're never gonna get rid of the Scooby Doo, you
It's
know?
so now tell me the first time the guy was in the shot, right? The director, McQuarrie, was foreshadowing it so much. All you could say was, "That guy's got no purpose other than to do the Scooby Doo."
You mean when they were like there was some sort of briefing,
Yeah.
at the intelligence,
And this guy came in and he opens a case and and he kinda had a funky look
Yeah,
to his face.
he did it. He was clearly, eavesdropping on the conversation, and
Right, and they
yeah,
kept
it was
showing him. It was
right.
stupid. It was just
That was pretty
stupid.
silly. That was pretty silly. Now, I think, I feel like this is a film I've gotta see again, though, to be honest, which I don't say that very often,
Yeah.
but I feel like I do because I kinda went back and was just looking at clips and, just some of the featurettes that you can access online right now, even though it's not, you can pre-order it digitally, but you can't, buy it yet. It is, when I was in the theater watching it, I think I left going, "It was alright. It was alright, but nothing great." And I really with this whole motorcycle, lead up,
Right.
right? The total climax of the film, essentially.
Right,
I
which
mean,
normally
we
the
got that 6 months ago. We
right.
knew this back in December, what was
That's
going on.
why when you shoot a trailer,
Yes.
usually you shoot the first 5 minutes can make the trailer,
Yeah.
nothing else. Tim Burton did it
Mhm.
perfectly with
Right.
'89 Batman.
Yeah.
We saw these great sequences, but when we went to the theater, it was all the first 5 minutes.
Well, or film some additional shit. and do the old, kind of a bait and switch, right? So you're not completely, because this really, that, remember in the first look we did on this,
Mhm.
I said, you can roll tape,
Yeah.
but I was talking about how if this is in the trailer, imagine what else must be in the film. There
Right.
was nothing else.
There was nothing
There was
else.
now
There was the scene on the
the
train
scene on the train, like the
that
whole train sequence was, and I laughed out loud a couple of times because it was so over the top.
right.
And I don't want to give too many spoilers, but
Right, right.
it was, that was okay, but there was not, and you get the usual car chase and
Then
like
they had the John Wick
motorcycle.
scene, right? I mean,
Yes,
it was like, "Hey, let's do the thing from John Wick." I
yeah,
I mean, I
the
can't
car with no door and the whole,
exactly.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
what worked for me was, they had a backup car for him, and he
mhm.
hits the button in this yellow clunker.
That was hilarious.
I thought that whole sequence
That was
worked.
hilarious. That was
If the whole
hilarious.
movie was like that,
Yeah, and that's what
this
he
would
and
be doing
Haley At
Oppenheimer numbers.
Haley Atwell, yeah, it was like, "The
Yeah.
car's on fire, the car's on fire, we're on
Right.
fire." Yeah, it was, it just, it wasn't overly satisfying. It wasn't horrible. I enjoyed it, but in retrospect, I wouldn't have, like, kinda rushed out to the theater to see it, and that,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a little bit of what's going on here with some of these, earnings
Well,
that we're seeing with some of these films.
straight out, we say this a lot, and a couple of people have bounced back at us.
Mm.
Movies are
You
too
mean
long.
clapback? I'm trying to
Clap back, whatever.
yeah, reference.
Movies are too damn long.
Mhm.
And that Barbenheimer thing, do you know what that means? Not just mixing of the names. AMC has a deal
Yeah,
where
you can
they
see both of the
sold
films.
and people are going to both back to back.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's been
that's
a long time since I
and
think
I
I
think
I did a Kubrick marathon one time, I think, is in the theater. That was
yeah, and I love, I love noir movies, but
yeah.
1, plenty.
Mhm.
2, maybe.
Yeah.
And I used to go to 2 movies every Friday, but they were 90 minutes.
Mhm.
I can't sit there for 3 hours. I gotta take a leak for crying out
You
loud. I
know,
was sitting there with a kidney stone.
it's interesting. That didn't really bother me in this film,
My
and we
kidney
said,
stone?
yeah, I felt nothing, you know? I felt bad for you, but that was about
Yeah.
it. Yeah, 2 hours and 43 minutes, but that I didn't have a hang up about that in this film. I mean, it and
No.
that and I guess that's one good thing to say about it, but, there were just, let's talk about the story a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Can you, like, sum up the plot of this one just kind of
Yeah.
very briefly?
It starts out there's a
No,
Russian
don't
sub
start out, just give us the plot line, like, this is
Yeah,
about
well
this.
that's what it
It
is. It's
starts
about
out, and then 30
the
minutes later.
Russians and the Americans are after this key. There's 2 keys that fit together,
Yeah, they're called a cruciform key.
and when they fit together, they literally can set off, I guess, what's bigger than an atomic bomb. And what happens is, Tom Cruise has one of the keys and the Russians have the other key. But while that's going on, while they're chasing keys, there's actually a character played by Isai Morales
Gabriel. Mhm.
that Gabriel that is not a real person. It's
Yeah.
AI. He gets in. It starts off, and this again, this is in the first 5 minutes, so not spoiler. But he in the first 5 minutes, the sub thinks it's under attack because Gabriel takes over the controls and makes it seem like it's an
Wait a
attack.
second. Oh, wait a second. Are you absolutely certain that he wasn't a real g I don't think that's correct. I think
No, I don't think he's real. He's the
no, he's not.
AI
He's
person.
no. That's a whole that's a it's kind of like in, The Avengers. What is it? That brain of the computer. Uh,
Yeah,
Again, I can't remember back,
right,
2 years ago, but,
back when they were
there's
good.
a rogue, uh, AI, which is they refer to it as the entity.
Correct.
That's the AI, not Gabriel. He's kind of brokering, I don't
I
know, some sort
thought
of
he
deal for.
was
No, he's
the
like a
AI
liaison for the AI. And so this key that you're talking about, it isn't for them to get like access to a nuclear weapon type of thing. It's really sort of to control, the financial,
Yeah.
the banks and the
Like whoever
government
has that
systems
key,
and
both sides of the key controls the
right.
world.
Yeah,
And
essentially, yeah.
I thought it was interesting, this is the only spoiler I'll give, but when they first put the key together to see that it's both
Mhm.
sides,
Right.
the red light goes on, then the green light goes on, and I gotta believe that was a callback
So the gum,
to the original red light, green light,
it might be. Yeah, it
but
might
I
be.
don't know.
But, and I didn't realize, like, do you know what Dead Reckoning means?
Well, I thought it meant either the device was known as Dead Reckoning or, um, at one point, I thought maybe the ship it was confusing, so
Yeah.
don't make it seem like I'm an idiot.
No,
It
no, I'm
was
not. I
confusing
just didn't know if you looked into it at all,
because there
like,
was a
because I
lot of
didn't know.
Russian. Oh,
I
do
didn't
you
know.
so
I
you
know, yeah,
okay,
it's a navigational term,
okay.
and it again, we're gonna get blasted, but and feel free to, like, in the comments, those of you that, like, in the Navy or whoever that you would know what Dead
Right.
Reckoning is, but it's in a sense, in the most simplest form, it's basically sort of an old navigational system that can sort of predict the location of an object
Hmm,
by by
okay.
by by identifying its current position
Right.
and then trying to project where it's going to be based on what other factors, speed or whatever.
They
That's
only
called dead reckoning.
they
And
only
that's a
brought it
horrible
up.
explanation, I'm sure, but that gives you a somewhat of a sense of what it is.
Yeah, somebody will educate us in the
Yeah, but
comments.
the idea being that, and what I like about that is that it gets you more into the kind of storyline of AI where, you know, this kind of precognition, right, or determining where you're going to be before you're there, which is what a lot of this entity was doing, right?
Right,
Even at one point, Benji says, "Oh, don't do that because that's he already anticipates you're going to he being the entity."
right.
Is already anticipating that's what you're gonna do. It was thinking like 3 steps ahead of them, right?
Yeah,
And, this can get us down a whole wormhole, rabbit
right.
hole of this AI conversation. It's very topical right now.
It is topical. It's part of the actors and writers strike, especially the actors.
That's
Like, they
right.
can do something, and then their image can be used, and they can be tap dancing when
Well, it isn't even about the performances, the writing.
well, yeah, well, the writing, though, comes down to fewer episodes. That's their big gripe.
No, but I'm just saying that you've got technology that could just write me a script for this,
Yeah, yeah, I know,
you
like,
know?
IBM has done
Yeah,
that,
right.
and I think it'd be just the same as any other dog
I don't know.
shit stuff.
You may not have seen this. You can listen to it or you can pull it up on YouTube, but Patton Oswalt,
Mhm.
who I love from The King of Queens,
Yeah,
stand-up comedian.
he works a lot with Disney
He's
now.
also a comic nerd. He was on Conan O'Brien's podcast recently, and they got
Mhm,
into a whole conversation about AI because Patton was one of the first people to have TiVo, I
mhm.
guess, is the story. And it's
Right.
interesting, as he told this story about being one of the early adopters of TiVo, it made me realize, oh, there was an episode of King of Queens that featured him in TiVo, and it was kind of anticipating that he liked certain things that he didn't like. That sort of he was trying to
Yeah, because TiVo gets shows that they think you'll like,
correct.
and they put them up. They have that
Again,
with our
again, this whole
cable.
this whole anticipating of what
Right.
learning your behavior, right?
Correct.
Learning it's
It's dangerous, and we're living in that time right now.
well, we haven't even scratched the surface of the
No, but
surface.
in the next year, like, this thing keeps speeding up. It's like a snowball going downhill.
Well, it's
By
learning,
next
yeah, at this
year,
alarming rate.
AI is gonna be so much more advanced.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
listening to people like, Chris Nolan, I saw an interview with him talking about Oppenheimer.
yeah.
You know, the effects in Oppenheimer are real. He
Yes,
didn't use any CGI, he
right.
didn't use
They're like, "No, we have to
footage.
go out and blow thing and use a bunch of
And in
bombs."
some cases, they did, like, little models,
Right.
and you can make it
Yeah, it
look
was a
like it's
lot
a
of
big
practical
thing,
effects, right.
but I'm looking forward to that
That's how he
alone.
likes to film anyways, though.
Yeah, and he spent
He's
3 years
he's
on
known
this
for that.
film.
Yeah, he's known for
So
that. But, you think about, again, Dead Reckoning, the whole navigational thing in AI. It's like you look at, vehicles and the use of AI
correct.
there.
There
It's
was a
all over the
woman
place.
there was a woman that was behind the
Self-driving.
wheel of a self-driving car, fall fast asleep on the highway.
Yeah, and she got
I
there
mean
in one piece, folks. She made it on time.
So, anyway, I would say
What's
this
your
is a mixed bag for me. I mean,
Okay.
I think we're almost on the same page. I was hoping you liked it
I did
so I
like
could
it.
dig it,
I didn't
a
love
little
it,
bit.
though. Yeah, I didn't
I
love it.
hate the Scooby-Doo-ness. They gotta stop that.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
nobody believes that if I see somebody with a Scooby-Doo face, I'm gonna be like, something's up with that dude.
You make it really hard for me not to launch into my Scooby Doo impression. It's my Shaggy. Zoink, Scoob. Okay, Reggie.
Oh god,
It's
if I knew
pretty
that
good.
was coming, I would have
Not
stayed
it's
out.
not Casey Kasem, but
No,
it's up there.
no.
Now the second part two is supposedly coming June in 2024 next year.
Yeah, and that's why it's almost not fair to give the movie an up or down yet
True.
because
Let
it's
the
not
whole
done
story
yet.
play out. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it unlike Spider-Man, this movie had an ending. You know what I mean? You felt
Right.
like
It
a
wasn't a
piece
to
of it
be you're
ended
talking about Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
into the Spider-Verse because
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was one of my complaints was
Right.
all of a sudden it was like, "See you in part 3."
Well, but
What?
there's something I'm okay with that. I mean, it's kind of like back in the day when, when with like TV, right? There was no, it's like you saw it and that was it. It aired Friday night at 8. And if
Right.
you met, and they always did that, right? And you had to wait till next week and what happened, the climax. I mean,
Right.
I don't have
But
a
but it
problem with that.
wasn't a cliffhanger in Spider-Man. There was no cliffhanger. It just kind of ended
Yeah. Yeah.
when there was more story to tell, and
Yeah.
I sat there for 2.5 hours, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, man,
Well,
you're
listen,
gonna."
it's likely not going to make its money back, but
No way.
we contributed our money to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I'd place a bet. I'd go to Vegas tomorrow. I'd put all my
Mhm.
money down on
And look
it's
at,
not gonna make it.
you made a friend out of it too. So, you
Yeah,
gotta,
to the lady, if she's watching,
yeah.
uh, um, it
Like and
wasn't that.
subscribe, Margaret. Don't forget
Yeah,
to like and
I just
subscribe.
don't like, Hostess cupcakes,
Speaking of
sorry.
which, if you have not currently started following us, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Oh Brother Podcast out on YouTube. You can also go to our official Oh Brother website, which is OH, what is it, Mike? B as in brother,
He isn't brother.
podcast.com, ohbpodcast.com.
Hey, and I wanna give a shout out because
I want to give a shout out
it's
as well.
coming down to the last episode of our production assistants,
Yeah.
done a bang up job,
Yes.
and you do all the work with them, I'm not even involved, I'm like a
It's
nobody.
funny when I'm talking to our production assistants. One of the first things I always say is, Mike, there not going to be a lot of interaction between you and Mike. It's really just us. I
Yeah.
always set that up so they don't think that you're going to be involved very much. But yeah, so I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to mention this at the end of the episode as well. Is a huge thanks to Noemi and Michelle, who have just done, as you said, an incredible job throughout this whole summer and producing some just top notch, not only episodes for us, but all of the social media that you see
Mhm.
is these ladies behind the scenes, and they've done a fabulous job. And I want to say, I would attribute it in large part to them. For those of you that have been subscribing to the channel, because we have seen a really great uptick in the subscriptions, and it's because of the quality of the work that they're
Yeah,
producing.
and
It
it
certainly
started
isn't got nothing to do with
no,
us.
it started before them, and then they just kept it rolling,
Yes.
and the last couple of episodes have just been
Hmm.
great.
Yes.
And
Yes. So
I know people can only have so much time and, they tend to watch 2 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that. I hope people,
Yeah,
took the time.
for the effort that they're putting in, it
Correct.
really,
I mean, they're
you know,
putting in clips and music and stuff, and it's just I mean, the last couple of episodes this one's gonna be a tough one.
this one's gonna be great. This one's gonna be fantastic. Maybe even, do better numbers than, Dead Reckoning Part 1? I don't know. That's, I'm not gonna
It
go out on a limb
could.
and make that claim,
I
but
mean, Indiana Jones,
mhm.
which you haven't seen yet.
No.
The Flash, I dare do I say this? It isn't that bad. It's
I don't know. That's
good
you.
for DC,
Mhm.
but it's not horrible like everybody is making it out to be. I mean, it's gonna be a
Right.
huge flop,
Yeah.
but that was word of mouth, and that was, one of the actors having a mental crisis, or so they say. By
Yeah.
the way, did you see Jamie Foxx today? This
I
can always
yeah,
get cut.
no, I heard he's,
He did
first
an
time he's come out.
interview,
Yeah? Is he doing
and
good?
he looks skinny, he looks
Really?
sick still, yeah.
Really?
Like, I'm worried about
But
him.
did he say what did we
No,
ever get the details? Okay.
no.
So he didn't even, that's interesting. Yeah, well, let's wish
Just said he was to hell and back, but
hmm.
he's back, and he doesn't look like he's back. It doesn't look like he could
Well,
perform.
well, if it was something that serious, I mean,
Yeah,
it's gonna take that out of you. So we'll wish him the best, from the Oh
yeah.
Brother podcast, and I guess we'll wind it down now. So there's your full review on Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. We will, of course, be back for Part 2
Mhm.
in the
And so
summer of
you're going to
2024.
Barbie, and I'm going to
I'm
Oppenheimer.
going to both. I'm going to Barbenheimer. I'm
I'm
doing
not doing
Barbenheimer.
Barbie, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
No, you have to because we are going to do an episode on that. So
Oh, dear
get your
lord.
ass to the theater, call Margaret up, get your popcorn ready, and we'll see you. We'll see you. We'll
Mark.
see you in the aisle,
Maybe
folks.
maybe I'll start introducing myself to be my name's I have OCD, and I'm gonna be really annoyed by everything you do. Can you please
See,
shut
if
up?
you just gave her a minute, and she was such a sweet woman, she
I
offered you some
know.
of her Triscuits or whatever it was, and yeah, you made a lifelong friend. Which, let's face it, you could use it. All right, so that's going to do it for another episode of the Yo Brother podcast. Been your host Dan Smith, alongside me as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.